Welcome to Black Spring on your Tuesday. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to this segment of Black Spring. Hope everybody's doing well. And today I just have just a couple of things. For one, I want to start off with something that I don't normally. This is again on a cultural, a bit of a cultural angle here, if you can call it that. It's regarding a speech or a virtual speech that was given by former President Barack Obama. And I just want to come out with a couple of things from that. Now, I know, of course, we all can agree that, of course, graduations are always or typically known as auspicious occasions. It's a milestone. It's a time for, it's the sky's the limit. All of these things that we learn about moving forward or making decisions and beginning. It's the beginning. It's literally a beginning. TR. So I can't beat that. It started off on a pretty high note. Thank you so much, TR, for coming in and being number one. You are appreciated. Shout out to TR News and Reviews. So I just want to go into this. Now, for one, I want to address the current president. Now, if I could say anything to the current president, Donald J. Trump. I would say, Mr. President, it's very admirable that you would like to restore your restoring funding and a sense of dignity if that's your aim is to restore funding or restore dignity and integrity to the funding of historically black colleges. Well, the problem with that is it's a little bit there's two different things. In a divisive climate in this country, many people would rather they want to be anything other than American. They want to keep, if you solve a person's problems, if you eliminate complaints and woes and trials and tribulations, then that means the people have less to complain about. There's less when you eliminate disparities and you make things more accessible. You would think that that's an upward mobility, an active mobility, or there should be some jubilance there. But you're not quite getting, that's not quite the response that you've gotten for that. In fact, I still would say many don't know that you actually have given more funding to these institutions. But I would say this, if that's your intent, to restore dignity, to restore funding, to restore integrity, to restore stability, that is admirable. But at the same time, you cannot appease a group of people that may or may not be mentally trapped in the past. The discernment is not there. They're not going to accept you because of the amount of division that there is, the amount of political division that there is, the amount of propaganda history that's been taught, the emotional segregation that still exists. They're not going to be able to accept that. And I'm going to also say, I would hope that that this wasn't an act of appeasement, because you cannot appease a group of people if they are not helping and thinking for themselves, and if they're not empowering themselves with what they have. Now, I will say, I want to continue with that. I would also say I have my own, I'm speaking from firsthand experience. I've been a student and I've been a teacher. So I've been full circle. My experience is full circle. The student becomes a teacher and the teacher becomes a student. I'm coming from that angle, that position. I'm not coming from a plural of hearsay when I say this. But I'm also saying that if you want to do a good deed, you might want to look at the finances. I mean, many of these universities, these establishments were established in the 19th century, and a lot has changed. I don't think I need to tell anybody that a lot has changed since then. Shout out to Ruth Truth. Thank you so much for coming in. And thank you, everybody, for joining me on this segment of Brunch Stream News. Thank you so much. Shout out to TR News and Reviews. So, this is a recap here. We're talking a little bit about the pomp and circumstance of, shout out to Patrick Jane Forums, a little bit of the pomp and circumstance with this buzz around former President Barack Obama's speech, virtual commencement speech. Okay, so I want to go back to what I was saying. So President Trump has restored, he signed a bipartisan bill that permanently provided more than $250 million a year to the nation's historically Black university, along with dozens of other institutions that serve large shares of minority students. Now, this was an article from the U.S. News in December of 2019. So that was Trump's restoring some stability to the nation's historically Black colleges and other minorities. Okay. So what I'm saying is, I think it's also maybe it's also part of Trump's campaign that he would fight. He said he promised to fight for HBCUs, and they're going to continue to do these things. Okay, so you can. I'll put this story into the description box. This came from the U.S. News World Report, but this was back last December. And it's, but let me keep going here. Shout out to Patrick Jane Forums. The thing about it is, that I would think that I don't think that President Trump is an emotive personality, but I am saying that some of the HBCUs are doing better than others. And I think it's more of a financial, maybe it needs to be, there needs to be more oversight. These universities receive federal money. They receive, this many students, a swath of the students receive financial aid to attend these universities. And I'm just thinking, if you're going to support the HBCUs, you might need to consider some type of financial oversight, because I do not believe that these institutions are been managed very well. I think they're very poorly run. And without proper management, you can throw money at anything. You can throw money at anything. Anything can be a money pit if it's not either managed well, or if the budgets are not, if it's not where it needs to be. There's also corruption amongst these institutions. And I'm saying this would be my message. Please, for those in the community that are coming from a place of, we should restore integrity to these universities, and restore some type of transparency, because there's a lot of corruption that goes on. In fact, I'm even going to say that after attending one of these universities, many of these HBCUs are run like liberal cities. They are liberal strongholds. The ideologies are just like the liberal cities. There are, unfortunately, because they're trying to make the world or the community a better place, they recruit students that, unfortunately, whether they have a lower score, they can't quite get into some of of course, the Ivy League is not quite available to them or accessible. The regional college, maybe not quite accessible to them or within their means. And so there it is. They extend themselves, the institution will extend themselves or accept students, and the students, based on, they get in and they hang around until either they flunk out, or they fail, or they run out of money. And then so you have no real retention and no real product when you recruit this type of students. But what's the end game? It's because they're getting the federal money. They care more about numbers, about who's coming there. They care more about the demographic, because they know they're going to be able to get the federal money to have that student come in. Whether that student's going to come in and fail out, flunk out, whatever, they already know that if those students are going to come there. And the retention, if you look at the retention rates at some of the HBCUs, it's horrible. It's very low. And if you look at the retention rate and you look at the graduation rates at some of these schools, you can see that the institution themselves need some actual oversight, not just from a financial. It would be the management, the academic, like the standards. They make the standards low, and then people are suffering once they get out into the real world and realize, hey, those standards were so low. I didn't learn that in this college. Oh, hey, I can't get a job. Or people look at the name of my university and they just drop my name onto the pile. I end up on the pile of 500 applications, and I'm number $3.99, which they really didn't even look at my application because they saw where I came, where I attended. There's a lot of issues. I would just suggest that you deal with some real time, realistic, just defer to some real people when you're dealing with these kinds of issues, because it's admirable and it's very dignified that you want to assist the HBCUs, but the HBCUs they need a lot of work. They need a lot of work from A to Z. In fact, you can go to the states, you can go state by state, institution by institution, and you can see these statistics for yourself. But please, sir, just don't blindly throw money at the HBCU and then expect that the same community is either going to wrap their arm around you, or they're going to that alone will restore or create some sustainability, because the issues are so much deeper than that. I think that's, we want, it's great. We all need financial stability, makes things a lot better. It makes things a lot easier. But at the same time, I just don't know if that's the way to, I don't know if that's going to be the end game or the ultimate, that's going to be a savior. You just can't throw money at these institutions, especially because of where they are, without knowing their financial histories, without knowing their management, without knowing corruption, the without knowing their market. You cannot have a real idea or real scope of what needs to be done, or what's the best way to help an institution like that. And I would think that with all the people that the president has access to, that he really needs a team. He has teams. I know that there's teams like Blacks for Trump, and there's all kinds of groups, but I just think he needs some everyday Americans. He needs some everyday Americans to talk to, not just not he doesn't need people, he doesn't just need like a manager or somebody, just a delegate. He needs experienced people. He needs real case studies. Do some studies. Don't study reparations. Study real-time students, real-time applications, real-time retention rates, real-time graduation rates, real-time application process. Let's look at some real factors to make a difference. Because throwing money at something is not appeasing the Black community, because I think that's not the way to go either. Appeasing anybody. I think a lot of people tend to, I've heard it from a liberal perspective, just appeasing people is not the way to assist or advance a group of people. Hang on just a second. Shout out to everybody that's in the stream right now. Shout out to Chrysler Imperial H. Thank you so much for coming in, joining me on the Brunch Stream News. Good morning to you. Shout out to Brad, the guitarist addict. And shout out to the Definition of Anarchy. How are you doing? Nice to see everybody. So I'm just going to give you a recap here. I'm speaking right now about the pomp and circumstances, if you will. And this is in reference to the speech that I've heard some buzz about. Of course, the former President Barack Obama's speech to the graduating class or classes. I'm going to get into that speech a little bit in just a second, but I'm talking about President Trump's his funding of the HBCUs his bill to fund the HBCU last winter, December. And yes, So I'm just going to continue there. At some point, I'll bring the Q&A up, and if anybody wants to jump on, but I want to finish this out really. Yeah. So I'm just talking about the dynamics, the culture of the HBCU. I just find it not to be. I don't think it's very sound to throw money at anything when you don't know the culture of a place. It's an investment and I'm really surprised. I think people blindly throw money at things all the time, and they don't know anything about what they're funding, or they don't know anything about how those institutions are run. They don't know anything about the students, the type of students that attend, the range, the not just the diversity in the students, but the demographics, the range, and the aptitudes of the students that attend these universities. I don't know how anybody can throw that kind of money and do it with some kind of oversight, is what I'm saying. Everybody else is held accountable for the way they spend, or the way they're, if you're overspending, or you've got too much revolving debt, or can you balance a checkbook. Everybody else is held to some standard of of accountability. So I'm just thinking you can't throw that kind of money into that situation without knowing anything about the culture of its market, or the product of that market, or the people that run the place, the bureaucracy of the place. And shout out to Chrysler Imperial. And Chrysler said, I saw part of that so-called speech that former President Barack Obama did. In my opinion, from what I saw, I found her appalling. Yes, I'm going to get into that really quickly. I was just finishing up, but I was just saying that I think that, whether you agree with President Trump, or I'm not a loyalist to the president. I'm going to, if I think something's off, I'm pretty much going to call it out. And this is not the ballot box right this second. And I know what my values are, but I'm just saying, from these cultural perspectives, he really needs to get I just think he needs a real team. He needs a real team of people when you want to deal with these cultural things. You need to get some people with the experience, whether it's teachers, whether it's professors, whether it's students, whether it's graduates. Get some real testimony, you need a liaison. You need a liaison to find out what in the entire heck is actually going on. So that's my spiel on that. I applaud and I admire him for doing that. But what I'm saying is, I think that, with all the politicization, it's never going to be seen. It's always going to be, disjunct, the whole HBCU thing. But I did that to segue into that speech. Now, here we go. Shout out to everybody that's in the stream. Hi, Patrick Jane Forums. Shout out to Ruth's Truth. Shout out to the Definition of Anarchy. Shout out to Brad, the Guitarist Addict. Shout out to Chrysler Imperial H. Let's see who else is here. Shout out to TR News and Reviews. Thank you guys so much for coming in for the Brunch Stream News. Now I will continue. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to talk about this speech just a little bit. Now I'm going to tell you, I could go ahead and give you something. I'm going to tell you, it's all right away. It's definitely full of rhetoric. Okay. We can talk about I'll just give you the rhetoric, and then I'll dig into some specific parts about it. Okay. So of course he frames it up, this is the former President Barack Obama. He frames the speech up, of course, I think everybody can agree. Graduation is an auspicious occasion. milestone, if you will. You're graduating class, you're getting your culminative or your capstone, but not without one last pomp and circumstance. Now, that's pomp and circumstance. That's basically what I'm calling this. And unfortunately, this seemed like more pomp to me. But I will say that with the rhetoric, I'll just start with the rhetoric. Okay, of course, he's hitting quite a few points on the rhetoric. He's got the emotive part of it going. He gets you all, he frames you all up emotive, talking about, oh, well, with whether, you got a big achievement coming on, and I'm paraphrasing some of this. I'll put this link in there. If you want the transcript, you can get it. Okay. Whether it is illness or a parent losing a job or living in a neighborhood where people too often count you out. Well, okay, let's just look at that. Well, people too often count you out. Well, who's counting them out? People. Who's counting you out? Now, I'm going to say this from a cultural perspective. Many times, people in the community themselves count you out. They're not exactly uplifting you. So what people is he referring to? A community where people count you out. It's a projection. I'm going to tell you, this thing is full of projection. It's full of projection. And I'm going to keep going. And then, of course, he says, along with the usual challenges of growing up, all of you had to deal with the added pressures of social media, reports of school shootings, and the specter of climate change. So there again, here we go. We're right into the Marxism. We'll go right into, okay, you talk about social media, the pressures of social media, the reports of school shootings. Well, what if, he never taught, this is somebody that hailed from Chicago. What did he do about school shootings? What has he done about gun violence or violence, period? What has he done about that? I'm just going to give, I don't want to make this into a rant, but I get unbelievably sick of people talking about the hypnotic speaking ability in this man. If you listen to the speeches, it just seems like something that somebody wrote for him. Do you actually think, does it feel like he's talking? It doesn't even feel like it was at times. I don't know if it was even written for him. It doesn't feel, there's the connectivity to me is not there. Can he enunciate? Can he articulate? Yes. But is this the Messiah? Whatever your God, whoever your God is that who you feel like speaking to you? What is the pontification? What is the, where's the hypnotism? What's the element of where's the hypnotic? Is it smooth? Is the delivery of it smooth? Yes. Does it feel organic? I'm saying, but what I'm just, there's more to any presidential leader than just being able to, if you want to say, read a teleprompter, or you're going to have, do I think he writes these speeches? No, not exactly. Do I find this to be an optimistic speech? No, not exactly. I think it's full of digs. I think it's full of projection. I think it's full of radical. I think it's full of Saul Alinsky's techniques and tactics. I think it's full of all of those things. I think it's full of pity. Everything he's saying, everything he's speaking out against, he's actually been a proponent for. So I'll continue it. Okay. So, and then of course he goes in and fluffs it up, talks about he layers it up about, the celebratory part of it. You were looking forward to prom night and you finally made it through and da 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 da. And then also he throws in, I guess, what is Tiger King? I don't know what Tiger King is. I'm not really I'm not a mainstream television watcher promoter. And so I'm paraphrasing this. And as much as I'm sure you love your parents, I'll bet being stuck at home with them and playing board games or watching Tiger King on TV, it's not exactly how you envision the last few months of your senior year. Well, most people don't. Most people wouldn't. So then he keeps going. This pandemic has shaken up the status quo and laid bare a lot of our country's deep-seated problems. Now he's starting to sound like a civil rights activist from the 1960s. Here we go. Shellac. From massive economic inequality to ongoing racial disparities to a lack of basic health care for people who need it. It's woken a lot of young people up to the fact that the old ways of doing things just don't work. Enters the new Green Deal. That's not there, but I'll keep going. And it doesn't matter how much money you make if everyone around you is hungry and sick, and that our society and our democracy only work when we think not just about ourselves, but about each other. So here again, it's just, to me, is there anything new? The playbook is always the same. It's always the same rhetoric, disparities, inequities. It's the same. It's always the same. How long have we had iniquities of what? Just the U.S. worldwide. What are you promoting here? What are you projecting? That we should, what, wealth redistribution? That's your answer? Or is it the Paris Climate Agreement that we're no longer a part of? The government is going to make everything, it's going to create you some more civil rights, some more government granted rights, and make everything and predict equal outcomes. So I'm just going to keep going here. And that our society democracy only work when we think about ourselves, when we think not just about ourselves, but about each other. It's also pulled back on another hard truth, something that we all have to eventually accept once our childhood comes to an end. All those adults that you used to think were in charge and knew what they were doing. Turns out they don't have all the answers. A lot of them aren't even asking the right questions. So if the world's going to get better, it's going to be up to you. That realization may be kind of intimidating, but I hope it's also inspiring. With all the challenges this country faces right now, nobody can tell you, quote, no, you're too young to understand, or, quote, this is how it's always been done. Because with so much uncertainty, with everything suddenly up for grabs, this is your generation's world to shape. So, honestly, there's not a lot to see here. Nothing new under the sun here. Shout out to Eating with Miss P. Shout out again to Ruth's Truths. Shout out to Chrysler Imperial H. Shout out to Patrick Jane Forums. Shout out to Chrysler Imperial H. Again, thank you so much for all your hard work. Patrick Jane Forums, TR News and Reviews. So yes, I'm just going to keep going here. Let's see. All right. So we've got, we've figured out, that there's inequities and disparities. Now that we've figured that out, and the lack of basic health care, we're all miserable by now, right? Are you miserable? Okay, so we're looking for the light here. Okay, so we're going to keep pulling the curtain back, right? So let's see. No, and he's right. Nobody has the answers. Nobody has all the answers. No one, no matter what their background is, no matter they're black, white, green, purple, doesn't matter. No one has all the answers. I think that's pretty cliche. Okay, so he says, since I'm one of the old guys, I won't tell you what to do with this power that rests in your hands, but I'll leave you with 3 quick pieces of advice. First, don't be afraid. America's gone through tough times before. Slavery, civil war, famine, disease, the Great Depression, and 9/11. Each time we came out stronger, usually because a new generation, young people like you, learned from past mistakes and figured out how to make things better. Second, do what you think is right. Doing what feels good, what's convenient, what's easy. That's how little kids think. Unfortunately, a lot of so-called grown-ups, including some with fancy titles and important jobs, still think that way, which is why things are so screwed up. I hope that instead you decide to ground yourself in values that last, like honesty, hard work, responsibility, fairness, generosity, respect for others. You won't get it right every time. You'll make mistakes like we all do. But if you listen to the truth that's inside yourself, even when it's hard, even when it's inconvenient, people will notice. They'll gravitate towards you and you'll be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. And finally, build a community. No one does big things big by themselves. Right now, when people are scared, it's easy to be cynical and say, quote, let me just look out for myself or my family or people who look or think or pray like me, end quote. But if we're going to get through these difficult times, if we're going to create a world where everybody has opportunities to find a job and afford college, if we're going to save the environment and defeat future pandemics, then we're going to have to do it together. So be alive to another. I'm not sure if this is a typo. So be alive to one another's struggles. I mean, maybe alert is what they wrote here. It came from Vox or not Vox or one of these sources here. I'll give it to you soon. Stand up for one another's rights. Leave behind all the old ways of thinking that divide us, sexism, racial prejudice, status, greed, and set the world on a different path. When you need help, Michelle and I have made it the mission of our foundation to give young people like you skills and support to lead in your own communities and to connect with you, other leaders around the world, and to connect with you with other leaders around the world and around the globe. But the truth is, you don't need us to tell you what to do because in so many ways, you've already started to lead. Congratulations, class of 2020. Keep making us proud. So, just for those of you that are just now joining us in this, 1 second. Yeah, I'm going to read some of the comments here. Shout out to everybody that's in the chat. I really appreciate you for being here. Ruth Truth says, we need more stimulus. Patrick J. Forums, more stimulus. Well, that's I'm not sure what's happening with that. I think it's probably going to be what's been proposed is not going to, what's been proposed. I think that's going to be rallied. That's not going to, I don't think that one's going to fly. So they're probably going to have to go back a few times. Unfortunately, yeah, it's going to have to go back a few times. And I don't really know I'm not really sure. I've seen some different things, but I'm thinking that the particular bill that's out right now, that one's not going to pass. And let's see. Okay, so yeah, so the speech that I was on, which was kind of hard to get through, but to me, there was not like I said, you got some rhetoric in there. You definitely have rhetoric, and it's definitely more of a one world kind of a rhetoric. It's definitely a rhetoric of despair. It's definitely a rhetoric of that highlights the past of slavery and civil war, and why I'm surprised. Why didn't you throw in Jim Crow, and why didn't you throw? You got a whole bunch of other things you can throw in there. You can throw a whole lot of things in there, but I just don't know that that was. I don't know if that was that inspiring. I think if anything, he stayed on all of that despair and misery and victimhood and all those things a little bit long in there. And I personally don't, it's not something that I could sit through. I started watching it, and then I just said, let me just get the transcript myself and just read it myself, because I'm just not. I just think that his presidency is. I've never seen so much of an entanglement from a former president. Like, you're not president anymore. If you notice, the media in the past, they rarely even refer to him as the former president. You're not president anymore. Go away. We have problems, yes. But we also had problems before you became president as well. Everybody is not hypnotized. It's not a public speaking contest. And that's part of the reason why people are sick of the status quo. We're not getting to the root of issues. And this progressive regressive culture is really bringing people down and teaching people to be miserable. It's not empowering people. I mean, to me, it's also, there were digs at the current president, all laced in this thing. It's like, is that the class that I keep hearing about? Is that the class? Do your time and step aside. Somebody even mentioned something about a peaceful transfer of power. Well, we get past, yeah, peaceful. I don't feel, no, it wasn't a peaceful transfer, because it's like he never left. It's like a cloud, or that's something that won't go away. If you keep injecting yourself into every single, when I notice that when there's when the economy's on the up end, he tweets out, he signed legislation to make things basically projecting the things that were happening, the positive things that were happening. When things are down, you're injecting yourself. When are you gonna realize that this is like a bad relationship, like an unhealthy, a toxic relationship? When are you gonna realize it's over? I'm not like, you packed your things up, you're out, you're done. You did 2 terms. You're not coming back. Can you, if to me, if he had accepted that, I think a lot of other people would have accepted that he was done. But instead, it's like he's weaponized. I mean, he's got a history of surrounding himself with people that are radical. So he keeps this radical and mobilizes and irritates and agitates the climate. It's all the time. There has been no peaceful, there's been no healthy emotional transfer. It's an unhealthy situation. And I'm just wondering, is this going to go on for another 4 years unless they get what they want? I mean, can you imagine if Bill Clinton or the former presidents had stayed and interjected the entire time, good, bad, sad? You're always you're nominating yourself. Okay, if you want to be an advisor, well, advisors advise behind the scenes, right? But you're not even hiding your entanglements. It's disgraceful is what it is. So do we have no standards? Shout out to Chrysler Imperial H. In my opinion, former president is trying to shift all the blame on Trump. I don't know if I'm the only one that sees that. Well, he is, and he never. It's like foot fungus or something that will not, or it won't go away. He's like a virus. Go away. If you let things play out, what would it be if you were not injecting your opinion, your rhetoric, your Marxist ideas, and your victimhood, and your poor me, pity me, my community's not lifting me up, you know? It's an illusion. It's an unhealthy one. So gosh, I have spent 45 minutes on that. And by the way, but here's the other thing. How brilliant, how sinister is it that Trump would put that kind of invest that kind of money into the HBCUs, and then they go and tap the former president to come out and do a speech would pretty much gets his digs into the current president? How classy is that? How divisive is that? This president donated more to the HBCUs, but you invited this person to come back and cast doubt and dispersions and get digs. Add the pandemic to it. Okay, well, if you take this pandemic away, he still had the current president still had wins, had successes during his presidency. I mean, you can't. This pandemic does not erase. It's like they want to say that the pandemic is erasing everything that was done that was positive prior to the pandemic. You did have record unemployment rates. You still did have criminal justice reform. You still had many things. You still had an economy that was growing. The president was still mainstreaming or still streamlining many things that were more consistent with the way the country was, with not just on he was streaming things that benefited us all overall economically, for the overall health of the economy. He was still doing those things, but you can't erase all of that. And to me, that's what they're wanting. That's what they want this pandemic to do. But I just think it's pretty classy, and it pretty much, I hope that the president will learn something about throwing money into situations that need some real assistance, some management, some oversight. Because throwing money at the HBCUs is not going to appease a group of people who have been trained by the left to praise their skin color, and to praise government and look to government as if it's a god. You cannot reform those dynamics with money. And if you really want to help, I say you need a living and breathing case study. You don't need to reach, don't do these things in a vacuum. I'm speaking from a teacher student perspective. It's not a plural of hearsay. The way the HBCUs are run like liberal cities. That's a fact. You got to look at if you're going to look at that, you're looking at an entire city. You're looking at some cities, basically, is what you're looking at. You got to look at the corruption. You got to look at the finances. You got to look at the bureaucracy. You got to look at the product. You got to look at the people. You got to look at the students. You got to look at the vulnerabilities in these institutions. You can't just throw money at it. I'm actually surprised because he is a business. He's had a career in business. I'm really surprised. But unfortunately, I think some level of appeasement, maybe that was supposed to, I would hope that's not the end game. Let's see. Chrysler, shout out to you. He said, it's a wound that will not heal. They keep scratching off the scab. You're right. If you rip off the scab, and the longer the scab, you're right. The deeper the scab is, the harder they have to come in. They have to come in with something really powerful because, you know, we all know that things do heal. If you leave them alone, naturally they will heal. Even if you sprinkle a little dirt on a wound, it will still heal. But the higher that scab, the more it heals, the more layers and layers upon layers that develops, they know they have to come back with something even more divisive and even more blunt. They need more blunt, a blunt force to disturb that scab and bring it and bring the pain back again. They've got to do almost as much damage to the scab, to the developing or the extra layers of scab as they did to get the initial wound. They got to do just enough, and that's what they keep. That's excellent analogy. Chrysler Imperial Age. I've seen it. I can see that myself, because they won't leave it alone. Because they've got to keep people angry. They've got to keep people feeling sorry for themselves. They've got to keep marginalizing people. Will remember slavery, remember Civil War. And the people that they're telling to remember it, they don't even know the history. They don't know what was behind, who was behind any of that. Who was behind it? If you want to demonize white people, oh, white people are bad, and white people this, white people that. This person has this person has more than me, that person has more than me. It's really sad. You can see it on social media. You can see it in many things. You can see it in beauty. They just inject things. It's a very jealous, a very envious, and it's also very dangerous for a culture to perpetuate this kind of toxic culture. It really is. So I've said my piece. I think I'm pretty much wrapping that up. I'm just saying there was nothing. It's full of you know, Karl Marx and Engels. They just expanded the left, the progressives, the Democrats, the 1960s. They just expanded all the disparities and just broken them down to, when there's a new denominator, they will break that one down. They will keep breaking down every single group of people. They will keep the division going. They will keep it going. They'll keep promoting it in the colleges. They'll keep promoting it through the sexes. They'll keep promoting it through the races. They'll keep promoting it through every single difference that they can. That's what they use. And that's what these kids are being taught. Because he talked about, you know, the environment and every single thing, UN agenda. If everybody just look at the UN agenda, go to UN.org, people. And that's where this man gets his talking points from. Go there. They tried this stuff in the 60s and they were not successful. But I think, they've pretty much, they've destroyed the culture. They've destroyed the culture of this country. He talks about values. Well, what values are you referring to? He says, let me just go back in here. Still, you think that way. He says, doing what feels good, what's convenient, what's easy. That's how little kids think. Unfortunately, a lot of so-called grown-ups, including some with fancy titles and important jobs, still think that way, which is very catty and very bitchy. It's a very catty and very bitchy thing to say. So-called grown-ups still think that way, which is why things are so screwed up. I hope that instead you decide to ground yourself in values that last. Well, what values would those be? What values would he be referring to? Everything that he promoted? Those aren't values. Those are ideologies. Destructive ideologies. You can't ground yourself in destruction. So I don't know what he's talking about. People need to think for themselves. If you're looking for inspiration, go read a book. For God's sakes, there's an agenda. He had an agenda and he still got one. Like Trump, don't like Trump. Read something for yourself. You don't need anybody to tell you what your values are. He just projected his values after telling them to ground themselves in values that last. Climate change. Defeat future pandemics. What's he promoting? Vaccines? Fourth Amendment violations? I'm going to tell you, this might get pulled. I'm going to tell you, if it gets pulled, I don't mind. Go ahead and pull it. Pull it. But I tell you one thing, the truth will always outshine. It'll always outshine anything. It cuts. Truth is the enemy. We get that. Okay. What else is he saying? So I'm sorry, I said I was going to be done with that, but I just wanted to pull out the rhetoric here. So yeah, so then here we go, and this is the final thing here. So be alert to one another's struggles. I think they quoted this. It says, so be alive to one another's struggles. Stand up for one another's rights. Social justice warriors is what he's promoting. Put your rose-colored glasses on for the rest of your life, your progressive rose-colored glasses, and look for all the disparities and iniquities in life. Look for it in Sleeping Beauty. Is she black enough? Is her hair curly enough? That's for the little kids. Okay? Stand up for one another's rights. Leave behind all the old ways of thinking that divide us. That's New World Order. He's not saying it directly, but other heads of state have said it. Come on, people. Go look up what a conspiracy theory is. Go find out who created that. The CIA, maybe? Go look it up. Go find out what a conspiracy theory is. But go to the UN. But before you do that, go to the UN.org's page and find out where this agenda comes from. Do yourself a favor. Sexism, racial prejudice, status, and greed. Everything that he says to leave behind are things that he's been a proponent for. He thinks he's progressive, but he's actually regressive. He's regressive on sexism, regressive on racial prejudice, regressive on status, regressive on greed, being envious of people because they have earned or worked harder than you. That's pretty regressive, right? Is it greed, or did they just earn more, or they just out earned or outworked, while you're telling people to feel sorry for themselves, whether to go work harder and focus on what you need to do and you be better than you were yesterday? He's telling them to focus on leave all that behind. They can't, because you planted the opposite seed, sir, and set the world on a different path. When you need help, so he's touting his foundation. And to connect you with young leaders around the country and around the globe. But truth is, you don't need us to tell you what to do, because in so many ways, you've already started to lead. You've already been indoctrinated. So, YouTube, if you're going to pull it, that's your right to do so. But it's also my right to call it like I see it. And my skin color doesn't help me do that. My mind allows me to think about things, to see what I see. Shout out to Chrysler Imperial H. I think this kind of came off like a rant, but I'm just saying, like, this guy's a radical. I mean, his name is being canned more than tuna right about now when it comes to upholding the oath of office. I don't know whether he's speaking out over fear. I don't know. And that goes into that whole deep state kind of ilk. That's not really my territory. Not that any of it's that I claim any specific territory, but I'm just saying, I'm not somebody this, I'm not a drooling minion begging for somebody to tell me how to think, tell me how to feel, tell me how to be Black, tell me how to recognize those who counted me out. If I thought about all the things, if I thought about everybody that told me that I wasn't going to be able to do what I wanted to do, I would have never done it. I just think it's despicable that anybody would set him up to make a speech like this, when it's been more factual and more evident that he did very little for the HBCUs. But now he needs to come back and give a speech because he's tit for tat all the time on between Twitter and Trump. They talk about Trump being on Twitter. Well, he's been on Twitter too. Is that presidential? He's used his Twitter account too, without a teleprompter. I'm just saying, I'm not hypnotized by these speeches. Who cares if Trump uses plain language? If Trump uses layman's terms, who cares? You understood what he said. I will tell you, former President Barack Obama, he played a lot of people. Some people are just now waking up. But I'm telling you, there were plenty of holes in his whole image and his whole agenda before he even left office. So yeah, anybody that's just now waking up, you got a lot. You're coming in on like season 16, on episode 16. You got a lot of catching up to do. You got a lot of reading to do. And no, I'm not going to do all of I'm not going to euphemize anything. And I'm not going to do all of your history homework and policy research for you. I'm not going to do that. Not on this channel. So you need to go go pull out some books and get some increase your lot. increase your framework, increase your concept of what history is and what policy is. You need to do all that for yourself. Can't help you with that. So I've stayed on that long enough. Shout out to everybody that showed up. But I wanted to get into something else. And it's actually the HR 6666. And that comes from, let's see, let's go into that just a bit. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks everybody for tuning in for this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Okay. All right. So the other topic of today consists of, I'm going to share the screen with you on this one. And I'm telling you, anybody on here that doesn't think for themselves, I'm not, you're welcome to go, you know, if you're butt hurt over not reading and not knowing anything other than marveling people's words that come out of their mouths, then you probably need to go on and exit stage left. So it's not a good way to promote myself, but just for kicks, I just want to say this as well. I'm also rolling out, I said this earlier this week, I'm also rolling out, before the end of the day, I will be rolling out the actual, shout out to Chrysler Imperial H, says, I think there's time for YouTube. I think there's time for YouTube can't handle the truth. Well, a lot of, you know, but before I go into this whole Bobby L. Rush situation, you know, a lot of YouTubers speak out against the former president all the time because they're informed. People that refer to this country as a constitutional republic, they do it because they're informed. People that are sitting around watching gossip rags for their news source or watching the mainstream media, they don't know, they have no perspective. They don't know history, they don't know policy, they don't know anything but to sit around and drool and be sheeple. And that's not what this channel is. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm not going to euphemize it. I'm not going to euphemize anything. So here we go. Let's just have a quick look at this. This is the HR 6666. I get enough sixes out. So this is the, I guess, the co-author of this whole, and he hails from the 1st District of Illinois. I'm not from the Midwest. So here I'm just going to read a little bit of this. This is Rush introduces bipartisan legislation to fund $100 billion in the pandemic testing and contact tracing effort. All right, now this is from the May 1st, 2020 press release. Washington today, U.S. Representative Rush, Bobby L. Rush, introduced H.R. 6666, the COVID-19 testing, reaching and contacting everyone, Trace Act. This bipartisan bill would establish a grant program run by the CDC, Center of Disease Control and Prevention, to fully mobilize testing and contact tracing efforts. Grantees would include community health centers, school-based health centers, academic medical centers, nonprofits, and other entities who would hire and train individuals to operate mobile testing units, as well as outreach in hotspots and medically underserved areas. See, here you go. This is a government expansion. That's a lot of money. That's enticing. You're enticing public and I think potentially private entities are going to, and non-government organizations are going to be willing to see if they can get this money to be a part of this. And it has, and they may have little or nothing to do with the well-being of people. You got people that are going to just be influenced and be enticed by money to participate in violating people's rights. Fourth Amendment is what I'm thinking right off. Quote, reopening our economy and getting back to normal will be all but impossible if we do not step up our testing efforts and implement robust and widespread contact tracing, said Representative Rush. Quote, until we have a vaccine to defeat this dreaded disease, contact tracing in order to understand the full breadth and depth of the spread of the virus is the only way we will be able to get out from under this. It's oppressive, pretty oppressive, I'll say. Quote, the Pandemic Trace Act will allow us to do this by creating a $100 billion grant program for local organizations to hire, train, pay individuals, and to purchase supplies to run mobile testing units and door-to-door outreach as is safe and necessary, with special preference being given to those operating in hot spots and medically underserved communities, as well as those entities who commit to hiring from these neighborhoods. See, you see what I'm saying? They are, it makes perfect sense. Is the reason they talked about the iniquities and the disparities in the Black community, because they are going to use this, they're going to use this imposition to entice people to participate, whether what they're doing is effective or not. And some people are going to go, a lot of people are going to go for it because of the damage, the amount of damage that's been done to this economy. A lot of people could use some extra money. A lot of non-government organizations. I wouldn't even be surprised if they didn't start reaching out to churches and using ministers and using people just to do whatever, just to do their bidding. I wouldn't be surprised. It's pretty gross. So I'm just going to keep going. Just going to keep going here. All right. So I'll keep going here. I'm almost to the end of this one, but I just wanted to kind of go into it myself. So yeah, this whole underserved, this whole iniquity thing, it's about equality. Don't you know everything we do is about equality? Okay, so where was I on that? So let me read this last little part, because then you get into the questions, okay? Real quick. This is this act will allow us to do this by creating a $100 billion grant program for local organizations to hire, train, and pay individuals, and to purchase supplies to run mobile testing units, door-to-door outreach as it is safe and necessary, with the special preference being given to those operating in hot spots and medically underserved communities, as well as those entities who commit to hiring from these neighborhoods. Quote, I'm immensely proud to see this bill receive bipartisan support, and I hope to see that the Trace Act, swiftly adopted by the House and as a standalone bill as part of a larger response package. A Rep. Rush answers frequently asked questions about the Trace Act. Number one, what is the Trace Act? Okay, his response, I assume, is Testing, Reaching, and Contacting Everyone Act is a comprehensive bipartisan bill that would establish a $100 billion grant program for local organizations to hire, train, and pay individuals to run mobile testing units, conduct door-to-door outreach, with special preference being given to those operating in hotspots and medically underserved communities. The bill has officially been endorsed by the American Diabetes Association and EverThrive in Illinois. So there you go. Here you go. And who's high risk for diabetes? The Black community. I guess the American Heart Association is your next endorsement. So I'm going to keep rolling here. What is contact tracing? Contact tracing is not a new concept. Oh, watch them make you feel better. It's not a new concept. It is used all over the world to combat infectious disease such as Ebola, tuberculosis. So because it's used all over the world, it's appropriate And it makes the United States, it has to be okay for the United States because it's used all over the world, which we're a unique nation. So that doesn't help me. That doesn't cut it, because we don't subscribe to, I don't know why we're even subscribing to the WHO organization. That's not a US endorsed, not a US elected, for one. We did not elect the WHO. We didn't take a vote on that. They were appointed by the UN. So here again, let me just keep going. Because the virus is highly contagious, the contact tracing helps us understand who has the virus and who they might have come in contact with, so we can better protect those potential patients as well. According to the CDC, contact tracing is a core disease control measure and a key strategy for preventing the disease. Given that many people with the virus are asymptomatic, contact tracing becomes even more important if we are serious about getting back to work and back to normal. Moreover, we are currently witnessing more frequent testing in white. Oh my gosh. How long did that take? More frequent testing in white, affluent communities, but more 19 cases and deaths in low income and minority communities. Okay, it's always black and white, right? In Illinois, even though black residents are dying at more than 3 times the rate of the state's white population, white residents are still tested nearly twice as often. That is why we need to ramp up testing and contact tracing in these communities and other medically underserved communities as well. Jeez, oh pizza. Are we in Africa? Enters gates, right? All right, I'm going to keep going. Who would qualify for grants? Federally qualified health centers, school-based health clinics, disproportionate share hospitals, academic medical centers, nonprofits, including faith-based organizations. And now they're coming into the churches, high schools and universities, and any other entity deemed eligible by the CDC. I swear, my gosh, if you guys can't see, they will use anybody. They will manipulate anyone. They will manipulate anyone. Shout out to you, Chrysler. He said, I wish these politicians would leave race out of, especially the way the climate is right now with this pandemic. They won't, Chrysler. They won't, because there is an agenda. They need the black community to be suffering so that they can generate more federal funds. That is the end game. They need federal funds. How do you get it? Well, you claim that you're concerned about people that are underserved, or the underdog. The underdog is your ticket to manipulation. It's despicable. They need that is a part of, that's credible to them. They try to build cases for spending and stealing money based on the underdog. The underdog is their credibility. Well, because we're doing it for them and the underserved and the poor, because it's the poor and the underserved and the Fabergé eggs of America's society, that's why we need this money to be approved. That's why we need to get kickbacks on this money and these grants. Because you better believe that there's special interest in this. You better believe out of all that, that's a broad, they've got everything covered. When you say who qualifies for the grants, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 umbrellas that you can find your qualification in. And I'm going to tell you, many of them are public places. Places that already get funding, federal money. And those that aren't quite getting any money. See, it's even nonprofits, churches. So you see, we have church, we separate church and state, right? Not them. They can involve faith-based organizations. I'm sure Planned Parenthood's probably a part of it as well. Okay, I'm almost to the end of this. Thank you for hanging around for this. This is okay. Here's the other question. It says, does the TRACE Act require testing? No. The TRACE is about providing testing to those who want and need it. Not everyone has the ability to visit, drive through. See, there again, there's another disparity. Now, everyone has the ability to drive through testing sites, and many others are unable to leave their homes and get tested for any number of reasons. This bill would allow the testers to come to you through mobile testing units and door-to-door outreach as safe and necessary from members of your own community. So there's the credit. They're trying to build the credibility up. People from your own community. That should make you feel better, right? Not only we're going to come to you, we got all the answers. However, if you don't want to be tested for the pandemic, you won't have to be, but you should. Okay, I'm glad I pulled this up. If I test positive for the pandemic, will I be forced to quarantine? Absolutely not. Again, these tests would be completely voluntary. The bill does not force you or your loved ones to do anything at will. With that being said, if you or your loved ones does have the pandemic, it is advised that you do self-quarantine and maintain social distance from others. If you're experiencing symptoms, you should contact your primary care physician immediately and look into getting tested. Right. The next one, this is the last scenario. I saw online that the bill allows the government to enter my home and remove my children if we test positive for the pandemic. Is that true? It says, I've seen these alarming posts as well, but I can assure you that they are completely false. This bill does not authorize anyone to enter your home or for whatever reason without your permission. Nor does it allow the government to remove anyone from your home because of the pandemic. Again, this bill is about providing access to testing and outreach for medically underserved communities who need to get tested, but currently their needs aren't being met. This bill is about our country safely reopening for the economy so we can get back to normal. All right. Do you believe that? I mean, seriously? Every answer has to do with the underserved. All right, Chrysler got something here. It says, as well as you know, I know there's poor in every race. Doesn't matter whether you're black, white, green, or red. Yeah, that's right. Well, they act like that's something new. They act like that's specific to America. They act like slavery was specific to America. That's the only place that ever happened, right? You never hear anything. They don't talk about indigenous people and the slaveries and things that happened amongst those people. Other indigenous people had those issues as well. And that it was a way of life. And also some of these black people don't want to believe that there were actually black slave owners. But you got this one group of people that have always purported that they're a champion for all of these people. Because his answers in here, this bill is about providing access and outreach. This is a special interest bill. They're going to entice people with money in order to infiltrate people to basically to get access to people's lives, because they're trying to help you, poor unfortunate souls. So I'm just saying, you got to wake up to the game at some point. There's an agenda here. The disparities and You know, the diet, all the things, the diabetes, the heart disease, those things are all very specific to, those are things that happen to be, those are some genetic disparities. Well, what is the government going to do about those things that are specific to one, maybe one group of people? What can the government do? Nothing. Throwing money at disparities, genetics. Can you make things better with diet and exercise and doing what you already know you should do? So, I think this was kind of a disconcerting stream, but it's just, you got two people from the same state that was in this stream. So with that, I'm going to change the dynamic a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about the membership program. The membership program is actually going to be, I'm going to be rolling that out before the end of the day. I said it's going to be this week. It's going to be before the end of the day. So if you're interested in a membership, you'll be able to participate in that. You'll be able to find a membership that's right for you. You'll be able to find a level that's right for you. There will be options there, and you can find something there. I think I'm going to have a little bit more leverage there than I will on this site. I don't want, the whole policing and whole, things I'll be able to do there. I won't be, I'll have some leverage there, and there's extra perks for people and their loyalty and all. And I appreciate everyone. So, yeah, so I'm going to be rolling, and actually you will find some other things. You will find some other things about the program on the community tab today. So you'll be able to go on there and see, actually, but you'll have access to as well, anybody's out there. Shout out to everybody that came in for the stream. I hope that you can find it somewhere to hit the like button or dislike, or find something that speaks to you out there. So yeah, I really appreciate everybody for coming in. I think, let's see. So yeah, I appreciate everybody for coming in for this stream. So what I'm going to do is, let's see. So it will be on the community tab, and there'll be a link on the community tab for the membership program. And shout out to Brett's Gaming Channel. Brett's Gaming Channel, I'm going to drop your link. And Chrysler will drop your link as well. Let me go ahead and do, let's see. I'm going to drop, shout out to Brett's Gaming Channel. I really appreciate Brett's Gaming Channel. He's most generous, very supportive of Black Spring. Really appreciate you. So I'm going to drop, this is Brett's Gaming Channel. Drop that, and then Chrysler will be dropping yours as well. Chrysler is a great content creator, and he's also he's a moderator. He's pretty amazing, very consistent. So also you will find his link in the stream as well. And I will be getting back to your your playlist as well. I really appreciate everybody for coming on today. But yes, I'm also going to be rolling out information. The link for the memberships will be on the not utility page, community page. So it will be there for you. So this is this is Chrysler's. This is Chrysler's page that I'm dropping in the stream, and let's see. Yes, I will be. It's probably within the next couple of hours. I will have released the actual. You'll be able to register today, as early as today. People that want to sign up be able to register today. I'm excited to roll that out. I'm excited to be able to offer some extra things there, and to just, offer some things a little bit more exclusive. Of course, no one's required to join. I appreciate your presence here. You're always welcome here. But there will just be some things, of course, that I can do there that I cannot do here. And unfortunately, that's just the way, that is the culture that we're living in. That is the culture. It's not new normal, it's abnormal. So that's, we're dealing with a different kind of a culture. And I will be putting those. I will tell you, there's at least there's more than one type of membership that you can sign up for, and those would be immediate. As soon as you sign up, you're basically a part. Your benefits are effective immediately. So appreciate everybody for coming out. I'm just going to do a shout out here. Shout out to TR News and Reviews. Shout out to Ruth's Truths. Shout out to Patrick Jane Forums. Shout out to Chrysler Imperial H. Shout out to Brad the Guitarist Addict. Shout out to the Definition of Anarchy. Shout out to Chrysler Imperial H. I so appreciate it very much. Let me see what else I can do here. Yeah, I'm trying to. Yeah. So I have, so, but the main point is that you will be able to go on today, and you'll be able to register today. And so things should be up and running. And I appreciate everybody for tuning into this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Also, I am on Instagram as well. I'm not sure if anybody's on Instagram, but it's Black Spring with Autumn on Instagram. The D Live is another project, but definitely Instagram is the other. Instagram is the other page. So I really appreciate you guys. So with that said, I'm going to wrap up this stream. If nobody has anything else. And I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Have a great rest of your Tuesday.